Are you ready for today?
What's today?
I don't know.
Just Friday?
You said you want to take time on podcast record yesterday, and then you're like, "Hey, surprise, we're doing a podcast."
Oh, that's right.
And
Yeah,
I was like,
I definitely.
okay.
Well, no, I said that I wanted to do one or two records early next week, and then I did hit you last night with, "Hey, so I have someone, and we're gonna do one tomorrow morning." You're like, "What time?" I'm like, "Hey, well, I'll see you in the morning."
Yeah. And then I got the text at 7 p.m.
Yeah,
It's late for you too. Sorry about that, guys.
It's fine.
I was sitting there at
excited.
Emma's dance recital or dance practice, and I'm just sitting there and I'm watching her while also thinking, I'm like, Robby's in town.
Hey, everybody.
sent the little text. So I think
right.
at that point you were just chilling at that point too. So
I was here. I was just working on some other stuff, hanging out. That's all I was doing. Well, do you want to introduce our guest for everybody?
So yeah, we have Robby Ficker here. He is the Director of Brand Marketing and Creative at TB12. He oversees the development, execution of marketing strategies, analyzing market trends, and assures brand consistency, which we all know too well that is a critical component of all of our business models nowadays.
Yeah, for real.
You previously were at Converse, and your last title there was...
So at Converse, I was the global brand manager for basketball when we relaunched the basketball category, which was a lot of fun because Converse is a heritage basketball brand.
Yes,
so, yeah.
And still one of your favorite brands, I know, just in general. You're a big
Well,
fan
he's
of
wearing
Converse.
Nikes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I even rocked my my pair today in honor of you.
I did notice those, and I thought they might have been the Court Classic one stars there.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, which I got with you back
Nice.
back a few years ago. So
You're on point, Kev.
I know. I
stuff.
opened up the closet, saw the shoes, and I actually grabbed a completely separate pair, and the red caught my eye, and I was like, "Oh, quick adjustment." So
Awesome.
decided to rock
They
them in
look
honor
good.
of you. They're still so insanely comfortable. So
Great.
but yeah, been at TB12 for
It'll be 3 years in February.
okay.
So I started literally the week after Tom won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers is when I started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That must have been, was there a lot of pressure coming in at that point? Because now we're at like the height. This is peak TB.
Yeah, there's been a million peaks. over 45. He's 46 years old now, so over 22 or 23 seasons, whatever it is. But yes, that was a big moment. I didn't feel a lot of pressure on my side, on the marketing side, because honestly, he drives the business. Like him being visible, like at that time, there wasn't much that I could do. As much as that I could do to impact the business as him just going out and winning football games. So, and that's a good thing as a marketer.
So it was a great PR moment when he threw the trophy in the bay.
Yes, we used that for a long time. we repurposed that content a lot.
I think everybody did.
Yeah, especially as you talk about the TB12 method and it not like drinking alcohol is something that we tend to advise people not to do as part of the TB12 method. And so that clip is kind of like a nice storytelling moment of like moderation, right? It's like, hey, there are moments in time where even Tom Brady does this stuff, and you just gotta, you gotta do it in moderation. So it was a cool moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, you grew up in Massachusetts. You obviously are up there now, working for TB12. So, the number one question that everyone's going to want to know, which is going to make or break this whole episode, is, have you met Tom Brady?
Yes, I have. So I grew up.
That's it. That's the end. That's the end. That's it.
That's all you needed.
We know it.
Slice that up.
That's really. That right there is a short. That's a clip. That's the end of the episode. We're
gonna like put you onto the boat with the trophy throwing happening, and you guys are shaking hands.
You guys got some good graphic designers. So I grew up in New England and was not a Tom Brady fan, was not a Patriots fan, actively rooted against the Patriots for my entire childhood because of how good they are and because of the friends of mine that were Patriots fans. My dad was a Steelers fan, and I was a Titans fan after the Music City Miracle. But obviously, Tom was on TV all the time, and
oh, he's a hero there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I needed to wait until he went to the Bucs to work for him. That was the rule.
Okay.
No. So yeah, what happened was I joined TB12 in February of 2021, right after they won the Super Bowl. I was actually on a road trip out to Colorado during the Super Bowl. We watched the Super Bowl, me and a buddy, in Kansas City. When they beat Kansas City.
Wow.
And then I started remotely while I was in Colorado. And so, when they win, when a team wins the Super Bowl, they play the home opener on Thursday night the following year.
Yep.
So during that 6-8 months, we were working on a full-scale brand identity refresh for TB12. So new logo, new color palette, new language, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of picked that up when I joined in February. And then we had to pitch it to Tom in September of 2021. So flew down here with our CEO at the time, our CFO, a couple of other members of the leadership team. And we came down, we watched the Thursday night football game where he led a game-winning drive against the Cowboys, minute and a half left on Thursday night.
The GOAT.
Yeah, it was unbelievable to see in person, because you're sitting there with a minute and a half left and you're like, oh, he's done it so many times, he can't do it again. And then he did it again while we were there in person. It was unbelievable.
So what's remarkable is I was watching that.
Yeah.
We ended up getting drinks, I think, the
we were probably,
the next day, I think.
Yep.
And we talked about this, how you had that thought.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm watching at home.
Yes.
And I had the complete opposite thought. And I'm going, he 100% is going to do this.
Yeah. Yep.
So like,
our CFO wanted to leave the game.
Yeah,
with a minute and a half left.
No.
And Tom Brady with the football.
We definitely cracked that joke the next day, how you had the complete polar. You were in the stadium and I'm at home and I'm just like, he's 100% going to do this. And you're just like, I'm not sure he's going to. I'm like,
I was definitely going to stay.
Fourth quarter Brady.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was definitely going to stay.
I had seen it so many, because I'm a Dolphins fan.
Yeah.
So Patriots versus Dolphins, it didn't matter. Like he'd either beat the crap out of us in the first quarter, second quarter, minute and a half left. And I'm just like, he's 100%.
And the Cowboys were a good football team.
Yes, they
are a good football team.
Yeah.
So, but the cool part is I grew up rooting against Tom Brady, and he ends up being exactly how you hoped he would be if you're a fan of the guy. So the next day, right, he leads a game-winning drive late into the night on Thursday night. The next day he comes into our hotel and is just locked in for 3.5 hours, stayed with us, didn't fiddle with his phone one time. Wow. Except there was one moment where he picked up his phone and I was like, okay, this is the point where he goes outside to make a more important call or to answer whatever. And all he does is get up to take a picture of what we have on the board in front of him and sit back down in his chair. And he's just totally locked in, but not controlling, he's asking questions. He's very humble, cracking jokes, talking a little bit about the teams, the difference between the franchises and stuff, was, some candid stuff, which was really cool. Wow. And it gave me a lot of appreciation for the guy. Like I don't think I'd still be working for TB12, honestly, if he was one of those guys that isn't like you hope he is, if he's your hero, So it was a really cool experience. So we pitched the brand, we had a really good reaction, and we rolled out the new brand ID, and that was it. That
moment that you had with him as a leader in your own right in your departments, was that like a big thing for you to witness, and did that change how you go about leadership?
I think I don't know if there were a lot of new things I picked up on it, but it was one of those things for me that kind of reinforced the idea of authenticity to me. So he is the same guy in that room as he kind of positions himself in public. And I think that's really cool. And I think that should add to an athlete's legacy when you talk about where do they rank as the greatest athlete or the greatest quarterback of all time, is like how that relationship between the public eye and the private eye, I think should add to his legacy for sure. He is that guy. And that authenticity has always been important to me, but to see it done at that level, I think is really, really cool.
That's really cool. I mean, Kevin and I have been talking about how, like with any kind of brand, how can you incorporate more of yourself into it and your outside life and showcase that? To hear someone as high level as Tom Brady is, being so authentic really helps. That'll help my drive to like, hey, how can we, bring more of ourselves to this? So you're not just a figure, you're not just a business, but you're like, you're the people. Yeah.
It's the idea of documenting over creating, right? I think that distinction for me, like he has a production company and they obviously they want to position him in a particular way, but they follow him around and they capture content with him constantly. And so it's not about, hey, we're gonna create a specific narrative. No, we're gonna try to tell as much of the story as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna put a camera in your office.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Or
be
just hire
rolling
an
all the
intern.
time.
Hire an intern. And
We
just follow. Yep.
We actually we have an intern.
Yeah.
We've always do internships. We work
Yeah.
with some of the schools to bring people in and teach
Yep.
them. But we just started doing
That's
a series where the intern follows everybody around and
Yeah.
throws a mic on, and it's going
That's
to be like a
cool.
monthly recap just to see like the real in depths of what's going on.
Yeah,
So-
which she just captured me saying like two, I mean, very candid statements that I saw draft one the other day, and one of them I knew I said, and it was fine, like no big deal. But then the other one I like clearly blacked out. It was one of those moments, and I see myself on camera. I say the statement, and I'm just like,
we're all in the background. Leave
I-
it in.
Yeah.
I'm like, I said.
Well, if you want to come up for drinks with us afterwards, we
Yeah.
might get a few more
Okay,
of those.
Yeah, I was like,
do
it was perfectly fine. Like, I didn't say anything wrong per se, but I was just like, huh, I said that. All right. So now I'm realizing, and which I cracked the joke with Ryan the other day. I was like, because she put the mic on him, and I was like, make sure to pay attention to what you say, because she captures it all.
Yeah.
Did you see that football player recently who was mic'd up and he didn't realize he was mic'd up and he's just singing on the sidelines? The guys come up to him like, dude, you're mic'd up. He's like, oh. And then that one piece gets aired all over the
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they mic them up, and they, you know, the releases have been signed. I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna use it. I mean, it comes out every year that there's always a few clips that come out from you know, NFL films and sideline reporters and everything, and
Yeah.
you're just like, bro, you're clearly the focal point, and
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one. That's funny though.
So funny. It was just a couple days ago, so it'll pop up for you, I'm sure. Kind of going down the Rolodex of things we want to talk about is what's like a normal day for you?
Yeah, so I would say over the last few months, there isn't a typical day, and I know that's a cliche
I like
answer
that,
you
yeah.
guys get.
Cliche or not, it's true for even us. I mean,
Yeah.
So,
And you kind of want it. I mean, some people, you know, they want their like, I know I'm going to do this from 9 to 5 every day. But I would say for most of my career, I've wanted to like have different challenges each day. I think, you know, there are things that are there's still a process, right? For me, from a marketing standpoint is, you know, you start with like, all right, who do you want to talk to and what do they value? And then you talk about, okay, what are the things that I'm doing that, you know, that there are synergies between what I'm delivering, whether it's a product or a service or a campaign or whatever it might be. And then you're trying to connect those dots. And so on a daily basis, I'm, you know, building a concept map that helps me understand, okay, product, consumer, mindset, moment. How do I connect those three things in an integrated way? And I'm either at the planning stage of that process or I'm at the execution stage of that process or somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been a lot more close to like a lot more deployment lately, a lot more of the execution, right? And a little less of the strategy. But now we're getting for us on the TB12 side, starting to get back in a pattern of spending more time on strategy, more time on, okay, who is our consumer? What do they value? And what can we do 4 and 6 months from now to plan for, to storytell, to resonate, to create brand equity. And that I'm really excited about that shift upstream, which is nice. So,
and what's something that you found on the strategy side, on the brand awareness side, that is like, you know, talk like Q4 last year, like what have you learned in the last 3-4 months that is going to propel you the next 4 to 6 months?
A big thing for our brand is that Tom is our brand awareness driver. Right, when he plays football games, when he wins football games, when he's in the media, we get a lot of attention, and when he's not, you know, it's more difficult for us to get eyeballs. And so we're trying to build a, you know, and this has been happening since I joined the brand, is because we knew he was at the end of it. He was nearing the end of his career. Like, we're trying to build a brand that can survive, like can survive and thrive without him playing football. And so a piece of that is, you know, a lot of that is test and learn, right? A lot of that is trying new things that we haven't had to rely on in the past. Whether it's, for me, I spend a lot of time thinking about influencer and affiliate marketing, because Tom was our only influencer for a long time. So you don't have to do anything in that space. And so now whether it's passing the torch to another, you know, kind of tier 1 or tier 0 influencer that's at more at Tom's level, or you're building a portfolio of athletes and just authority across the space. Because that's another thing too, is like we've traditionally been a high performance brand, and we want to be we want to appeal to a wider range of people. We want to be more accessible. Tom wants to be more accessible, rather than seen as kind of like this pinnacle athlete that I can't reach.
That's what's crossing my mind. Sorry to cut you off. No. But like as he ages, you can start to work on that more.
Yes.
Because we worked with a company called Aviv where they were focusing on the older groups. Yeah. And in their demographic, they're looking at how can we showcase when you're 60, 70 and you're really healthy. Yep. And it's because you're doing these best practices with us. So, I mean, he's a ways away from 60, 70, 80, but when that partnership gets to that point and develops there, that's definitely a gateway you guys can open up and walk through.
There's a gap because you were saying when TB12 started, he was early 40s. Yeah. So TB12 almost started as an early 40s brand because it was viewed as Tom's current age, and you guys are trying to go backwards a little bit and expand that age range.
Yeah, and I think there's it's relative, right? So in NFL terms, Tom is 70 years old. You know, so like that, and that's that's what makes it an incredible story.
That's a great point.
And so you can still tell those stories. That there's still that impact of like having this guy that has totally transcended the sport. And the nice thing is that younger people know who he is, and it still resonates. And the message is start doing this kind of stuff now, because Tom actually values, and he said it on other podcasts and things, is like, I want to speak to the high school athlete, because the high school athlete is in a position where their habits are being formed, and I can have an impact on them selecting healthy daily habits. And that's kind of our shtick, is like, how do we get people involved in healthy daily habits? And our core consumer is 35 to 55, let's say, and they're Tom Brady fans. And that's what we're trying to, like, we have Tom Brady fans, and then we have people who are interested in nutrition, and there's not a lot of overlap there. And so we're cross-selling and upselling and trying to get those audience to, there to be more overlap. But there is the aspirational, like, younger audience that still knows who Tom is and that he authentically wants to speak to, so that he can impact their daily habits, which is part of the reason why I joined the brand. I think that's really cool.
Are you seeing that nationwide, or are you seeing that in pockets of like Tampa Bay and New England? Because like, I mean, ultimately, like, is your East and West Coast, upsells that you just mentioned the same, or are you noticing it because of where he played?
He resonates in New England and Tampa for sure. Those are the biggest markets. There are other tier, like what I would call tier one markets that you guys could guess, right? Like New York drives a lot of business, big media space. LA, there's some Texas markets that are big for us. But it really is about where he's played, and so that's why you would think you would think from the outside looking in that TB12 probably has a lot more brand awareness than we actually do. And a piece of that is we tend to be synonymous with the man, right? When people see TB12, they don't see a health and wellness brand. They see Tom Brady's lifestyle brand. So that's the shift we're trying to make, while still keeping Tom, like still, featuring Tom and positioning Tom as like, no, we're more than his lifestyle brand. Like, he actually cares about healthy daily habits, and we're the best at that. Like, we really like, and that was the other thing too, is like getting into nutrition. Like our like TB12 products are very well formulated, and they're premium products in the nutrition space. So it's nice working with a product you believe in too, as you try to make that shift.
Okay.
Can I ask you something too? I've been opening my ideas on like, what is it like working with a new company, and what is it like working with 100-year-old company or a 200-year-old company? You've worked with Converse, and that's a legacy company. Is there something that you've learned that's tried and true that applies to the 200-year-old companies down to the brand new companies?
Yes. So the place I always start, and this will be probably a joke back in my office a little bit, is consumer first, always. Like, and a little bit of it is who's attracted to your brand organically, but who do you want to get after, and then how do you reach them? And so the thing that's true about both, and they're very different consumers between Converse and TB12. And the cool thing about both of them is that you just have to know, you have to spend all your time, literally all your time, refreshing your thinking on who am I talking to, why, and how do I reach them. Converse, very sharp on, a young, creative kind of mover and changer in culture, right? When I was there, that was who they were targeting. And that's a great person to target because they influence culture in the future. And so you're going to grow with them. And so you're talking to people that are 16 to 20 years old that are driving culture in these key cities that you want to be a part of. And they're going to take your brand with you. And so that was a light bulb for me when I left Converse, is like, and it's the reason why you don't want to give up on a young consumer, is because, they're impressionable, even if they're not in your core. They're impressionable, and they take brands with them as they grow and push culture. But just getting sharp on who our consumer was at TB12 was super important, and we didn't invest as much in knowing our consumer early on, and it's something we need to continue to do. Is like, we're not speaking to the 18-year-old. We're speaking to a 35 to 55-year-old person who may feel we want to create more access for the TB12 brand and for Tom, and who may feel left out, right? Like, when you get to a certain age, you feel left out of the nutrition space, kind of. And so, like, disenfranchised almost. And I think there's an opportunity there. So
awesome.
Consumer first. That's what I would say across those brands. Yeah.
Incredible. You look like you got something to say. What's up?
Yeah, I'm wondering because there was one piece that I found the other day, actually before you even came down here. I heard about this, and then obviously getting you on this episode. I'm wondering what you think of Nike, and it's a little bit of a shift, but it's along the same lines. Like, what are your thoughts on Nike and Tiger Woods? Essentially, it appears to be an amicable breakup, but they are breaking up after.
I didn't know this. They're breaking up.
27 years. 27 years.
I was seeing memes and I didn't understand what it was.
Yes. So, and I thought about you because of the Nike Converse component. Yeah. Read this like 4 days ago. And then when we got you on, I put it in I was like, I want to ask them. And it's because of the, obviously philosophy changes. But we're seeing it across brands and across markets, right? Where partnerships are a little more fluid nowadays than they were. Yeah. The highlight now being that Tiger Woods and Nike 27 years are breaking up. What's your initial reaction to that? Why, and just how is that molding your line of thinking? Because you have Tom Brady, but yet you've already applied that.
Tread lightly, Robby.
Yeah. There's the tier 1, tier 0 that you were mentioning earlier. Like what initial thoughts?
It's a good question, because it does, like, there are some parallels to, like, having an athlete led, like, brand, even if it's a category at Nike. But the funny thing is I actually, when I was in college at UMass, I did my, kind of final thesis on, or I did a big paper on at Nike advertising, and specifically Tiger Woods, and his Hello World and how he was introduced. And because I was really interested in Nike as a brand. And so I pay a little bit more attention to it, but I wouldn't say I probably don't have a very educated point of view on the why or the what's next. What I would say is a lot of spaces within the sports and entertainment industry are becoming more fragmented. So there's a lot more challenger golf brands. Yep. And Nike has learned, as we've seen from previous actions, even before this, that golf isn't really an authentic space for them, and they're not going to invest as much in the category. That writing's been on the wall for a while, and at some point, you have to decide where you're going to invest. And I think Tiger Woods is nearing the end of his kind of elite professional career, obviously, if he hasn't already, and there are other smaller challenger brands out there that are, like nipping at Nike's heels and getting a lot more traction in the US marketplace. And so it becomes more important that you don't just sit on your pile of cash and kind of, keep feeding the behemoth, right? So I think it's the right move for both sides. I think Tiger has an opportunity as he moves into the second phase of his life, right? Post kind of elite golf. There are some smaller brands that he may move to that could do some really cool things and tell some cool stories with him. And I think it's good for both sides, because I don't think it makes sense, and Nike knows this, for them to invest a lot in the golf category. They have other areas where they need to catch back up. Running, they have a lot of challenger brands in running right now. So that would be my take. I think I love the sport of golf, and Tiger Woods is iconic. But it happened they didn't split from Jordan, but they still have Jordan brand, but you're always bringing in fresh blood and new athletes. And so,
every 3 to 5 years, they sign another major, athlete that's, a rookie or a second year player, and they also lose some opportunities. There's been a few headliners in recent years. You hear about an athlete that feels like they got stiffed, and then they go to a different competitor. There's a few big ones that you can immediately think of, or at least I do. But do you think the reason for I'll leave it open-ended. What do you think the reason for these smaller brands nipping at the heels, as you eloquently said? What do you think the main reason is?
I think there's a natural, and I'm not a student of history in this sense, but I think in my time in the industry, there's a natural kind of ebb and flow of the marketplace, right? And so you see a contraction and a consolidation, and then you see things being blown open, and that happens. And I think we're at a stage right now where you're seeing a fragmentation. You're seeing a lot of brands come into the marketplace, and that's probably spurred by changing market conditions with I'm sure COVID has had a big impact on that, right? Social media, and the evolution of social media has a huge impact on how brands can reach consumers. And so smaller brands can create an audience and a business for themselves without needing to go up against Nike and Adidas or an Under Armour. And so, but then you'll see some of the big brands buy up a lot of those small brands, right? So you see a consolidation again. And I think that happens in every industry all the time. It's just maybe on a different timeline.
Yeah.
So
we just saw that with and it's funny you say social media. That's actually what I was thinking you were going to head towards. Didn't want to put words in your mouth, but for our industry, Aperture is a company that started very small. They make a lot of lights. They're quite large now, and they just swallowed up Nanlux, which was another small.
There's so much news that's being broken to me right now.
They swallowed up Nanlux, which I have a buddy who lives out in LA, Shane, who is a massive fan of them, and then got swallowed up by Aperture, and it's because they made a light that was, quite frankly, going to punch Aperture in the face, and probably did a little bit, and they're merging their technology, which is only going to enhance the light and enhance that market. But same reason. I mean, they started small, social media based. They knew who their audience was. They made one singular light that was incredible. And then boom, got eaten alive in a good way. I'm saying this in a positive, and that's
a net positive for production. Exactly. Having those two companies come together.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts about large companies creating small companies just to disturb the marketplace? Have you ever taken part in creating anything like that?
I think so. I'd be interested. Yeah, I'd be interested if you had some specific examples. What I can say is I think it's good for large brands that want to Nike is a good example of a large brand that wants to be relevant to a lot of different audiences in different categories is you still know it's a part of the Nike brand, but Nike basketball has a little bit of different DNA than Nike football or Nike baseball, and there are other categories. And so in that sense, it's good to have, it's good to bring in the DNA from the brand that resonates back to, 1972 when they started, and like, kind of the just do it and that kind of stuff. And everybody is an athlete. If you have a body, you're an athlete. Like, that is Nike's DNA. And then how does that apply specifically to the consumers in the categories that you want to be in? So I'd be interested if you have any specific examples.
There's a conspiracy theory I can tell you about. There's a conspiracy theory that allegedly Nike owns StockX. Are you familiar with StockX?
Oh, yes.
And the conspiracy is that Nike will sell out of shoes, quote unquote, but really they're shipping their whole inventory to StockX. So then the prices can come up because people need the shoe, they want the shoe, but they actually own StockX. So they're really just allegedly, I don't want to get sued here.
Well, I think I'm more likely to get sued by answering this question.
Cut this out.
That's interesting.
Good answer. Good answer.
No, I can. So prior to working at Converse on basketball, I worked in energy and collaborations. So I'm familiar with the high heat and energy space. It's a space I adopted. I was not a sneakerhead before I joined Converse, but then I got to work with all, like, if you've heard of Kith, Bodega, Undefeated, those guys.
I love Ronnie Flag from Kith,
Yeah, I started on the retail side, retail marketing, working with those accounts, and then I moved into global brand management. And we had our brand partnerships with Rocket, with JW Anderson on the larger and high fashion side, with Kith, and then we worked with the individual shops too. And so I think there is what I'll say is, I think there is a gap in understanding between the people that are, and I hate to be this guy that's kind of like the guy in the space, but like, I think there's a gap in understanding of what actually goes on from the people who are inside and executing all this stuff, and that specific consumer, like the StockX and the energy collaboration consumer. I think they're looking for someone, and I'm not saying Nike's done a great job, but I think I think Nike could do a better job, I would say, and they would acknowledge this as like, in distribution and inventory, right? And getting people the shoe that want the shoe, kind of thing. But I certainly wouldn't, from my experience inside, I wouldn't say it's anything nefarious, for sure.
Okay.
That would shock me. I would say that's.
Well, we're always looking for a conspiracy. I mean, it's always more fun than the truth. Yeah, that's for sure. But that's just been something that's been floating around for the past year, just on the internet. Yeah, everyone's
that's
wondering.
An interesting one. Yeah.
Had you heard that prior?
No, I hadn't heard that one. You hear stories about the shops, the shops backdooring product and stuff like that. Like that happens in something that Nike cracks down on, and I used to connect with brand protection on some of that kind of stuff.
I remember when the crackdown was happening, because I mean, if you were like a sneakerhead in high school, everyone had, I got a guy in whatever business it is. He can put that on the side for you. And then it became a thing where, like, dude, just go online. Like, there's no guy anymore.
No, and I think the thing with conspiracy theories, and in that case too, is like, it becomes too easy. It really is too easy now to uncover those kind of things, that it'd be really difficult for a brand like Nike to get away with it, in my opinion, without it. And if that's it's tough that that's the only answer, right? But like, nobody believes you when you say that. But yeah, I mean, I guess what I'd say as kind of a final note on that is, like, you have the people in that space are, what's cool about the energy space, as opposed to other categories, is they really care about the culture. The people that work at these brands really care more about the culture than they do about making money selling sneakers. And they want to collaborate with, the cool brands that are helping drive culture in these cities across the globe, most of them anyways, right? Like the designers that I work with, the marketers that I work with, they are parts of the culture working for Nike. So they don't want to they don't want to be that way. Like they want to push culture forward. They want to empower these people. Yeah. And so that would be kind of my final.
I know you got something brewing. This is a real short thing, but to your point, that's why like Kith is everyone loves Kith because it's so for the culture that it's outside of that. It's like, we don't care. You are doing something amazing for the culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you gonna say? I'll lead into the fact that brand awareness and brand value has taken a shift in the last few years, where curious where, if you're noticing any of the same trend shifts on being authentic with your content, the creation. This day and age, we're not in the day and age anymore where you can just like put an ad in front of someone and like sell it hard for 30 straight seconds and get someone to press buy at the end.
Our BS meter is so small now.
I was just gonna say, the bullshit detector.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and when do you think that shift happened, and how are you combating it with your own marketing strategies?
It is, in my opinion, it's directly proportional to social media and the amount of noise that can be created. So like we are on the consumer side of it subject to so much noise from brands and from creators and all that kind of stuff. And so as you get inundated with that, or you're Gen Z and you're growing up with that, right, which is really tough, like your bullshit detector gets more finely tuned. And so it's a behavioral thing that happens at a subconscious level, right? It's part of evolving as a species almost. It's really like it's really interesting, and it's something I'm super interested in learning more about. But I think authenticity becomes more important the more noise there is, because people can see who's authentic and who's not. And also, like, you do have to be loud, right? So there are moments, and you have to pick your moment where you're going to be loud. But if you're loud and you're not authentic in that moment that you get, then it has a backfiring effect on it. And there is such thing as bad press. Like, I know they say that saying there's no such thing as bad press. There is such thing as bad press. Like that is, people love to use that term, but the bad press comes from being inauthentic. People turn you off. And so the idea of like, the iPhone content capture is, it's not just gaming the system. Like it's, hey, this is what we do even when we're not like producing, and that's important.
I'm so happy you said this.
Yeah.
I preach this to people all the time.
Yeah, it's super important. It's super important.
Yeah. I'm always just, our intern, go back to her. She wanted to buy a camera. I'm like, what phone do you have? I have an iPhone 10. Get a 15. Don't buy a camera. Get a new phone. You can use that for so much more. Rent a camera when you need a camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's like, really?
Yeah. I mean, I hit her with the rent after you said go to the 15. She's like, well, I really want to get this camera. And I was like, and I jumped in when I heard that. I think I was in my office. I heard it around the corner and I was like, don't do that.
Yeah.
And I came out and joined the conversation. I was like, don't do that. Rent. Pocket the extra money and then jump one, if not two notches above what you are about to buy. I'm not telling you to go drop 20K, but I'm telling you don't drop 15 today, rack up some more money and go buy something for $4,000 in 3 months, because that's going to then hold you over longer. And your ROI is going to be greater. I have no issues with your idea of going to the iPhone 15 in her situation, because then that phone is multi-purpose because it's your day-to-day.
The phone's going to get you the jobs, and you're going to use it to do the jobs.
Yeah. While also
and you can now. Like, you can do the whole, like, and I'm talking in very generalities here, but you can do the whole job with the phone.
Yeah.
Like, that is a reality in today's world.
Well, to your point about the kids who are growing up with this, I mean, at some point, there's a world where kids grow up without photos on a wall. And they only look at things through their phone. And if that's the case, then they're gonna what we're talking about, shoot everything on their phone, look at everything on their phone. Their eyes are gonna adapt to, it needs to look like this for me to even like it. If it looks too far like whatever, then it's that's weird. Well, that's cringe.
We get all the goggles coming out.
Oh yeah.
So you hit me with the Meta goggles the other day. I hit you with the Apple Vision goggles the other day.
There's another set of goggles coming, huh?
The Apple,
all right.
Such a conflicting thing. And the Apple ones are heavy. I like Apple. I'm an Apple fanboy. I've got like everything Apple. But they just, to me, they look, have you seen when the eyes glow?
No, I haven't seen it.
This like cloud opens up and your eyes glow like you're a Terminator or something like that.
Wow.
And I'm like, can you imagine you're on an airplane and like a bunch of people have these on, their eyes just all start glowing at the same time. You're like, oh my God, get me off this plane.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I'm stuck with the Meta ones of all things. Do you use any of that stuff?
I don't. I think it reminds me of like augmented reality, virtual reality, decentralization, crypto, and NFT kind of fall into. And I do, like, I try to pay attention to it. But it's one of those things that kind of like progresses and fits and starts, and you think it's here and then it's not, and it's 5 years away. And then it's here again and it's not, and it's 5 or 10 years away. And so you have to pay attention on I think on a case by case basis, on a like more tactically, right? Like maybe this particular piece of hardware is revolutionary for one reason or another. And so I like to try things. And I think that's a good marketing principle too, as we're talking about that, is like, I have a philosophy of like, try the things that might not work because your competitors aren't trying them. And if you try 10 of them and 3 of them work, you're doing 3 things that your competitors aren't doing now. Like, even if you only bat 300. So like, and there are times when as a brand director, I'm in a better position to be able to do that. I have money, I have resources, and there are other times where you can't do that and you just need to execute. But I think as a general principle, that's good. And it's good in life. It's good as a person to like, when you're trying to find a job, try 10 things, like, or trying to find out what you're good at or what you enjoy, try 10 things. And 3 of them they might be good at, and then right? And I think it's the same thing with what you're talking about, is like at new trends surface, new software, new hardware, like try a bunch of them and you'll find the 3 that work, and then you'll be able to take that in here and use it for something cool that nobody else is using it for. So that's kind of my approach to it.
I'm with you all the way.
I want to know, what are the 3 things that you found success with recently?
Oh, I don't.
Hey, you're gonna.
Yeah,
I mean, in baseball, if you bat 300,
Yeah.
you're in the Hall of Fame. So you're doing something right if you even have that much success. I mean, that's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, on the is there anything on the AI front? Is there anything on the 2024 horizon that you've already, even one success that you've tried in the last, call it, 6 months, that you're like, oh, this has worked and this is working?
Yeah, I'll mention a couple things. I don't think they're great examples of like really cutting edge, but
at least heading in that direction.
Yeah, we've dabbled in Chat GPT, right?
Okay.
And so I think like for our brand, written content is really important because you're educating people. Like we're in health and wellness, and people, video content is really important too. But I think it's more important. Written content is more important for us than it is for some other brands, because they want authority on something. And so the idea of having a resource like ChatGPT or some of these other models is good, because it can help you get 50 or 60% of the way there. It condenses the time to create content. It brings resources together that you wouldn't be able to find on your own. And so we have messed around with that a little bit. I'm more hesitant on that front. Like I like to be very deliberate about that, because they can have some biases that are really troubling. But when you think about it philosophically, but it's going to be the case that AI, like in its whether it's image-based or language-based from a marketing standpoint, is like supporting a marketing organization. That's going to happen. So you have to mess around with it. So that's one example. And then in terms of content, recipes for us was one of those things that it was like, okay, let's try to create some content that our consumer might find valuable. Let's try this, let's try this, let's try this, let's try recipes using our electrolytes and our protein. And the electrolytes started to resonate really well. And we started doing like smoothie recipes, and then also started into the mocktail zero proof, because we're obviously, our kind of thing as a brand is, alcohol, like if you can, no alcohol, but at least in very moderation.
Moderation.
Yeah. And me and my girlfriend have started moving into non-alcoholic beer during the week and not having drinks unless it's on like special occasion, things like that. And that's how a lot of people are moving across generations. And so now we're looking at zero proof cocktail recipe content with our electrolytes, flavoring it as kind of a space that we could start to get into and create some engagement around. And so that's exciting. And then you can that starts to really open the aperture, because then, you can do, I was thinking about this the other day. If you start to get in that space, you could do an activation in a key city at a signature bar with a great bartender. And that's a great piece of video content.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there are things you can do when all of those pieces come together. And that's why I like integrated marketing. Why I do what I do is because seeing the pieces. I'm not an expert in social. I'm not an expert in email. I'm not an expert in any of these spaces, but the integrated piece of it interests me because it's connecting dots and exploring white space. And so recipes, particularly zero proof, I think is going to be important for us in content moving forward.
That's cool.
That's really cool. Yeah. They say, what's the saying? Jack of all trades,
Master
that
of none.
thing. But then the finishing of it is often better than a master of one. So knowing that you pay attention to all these different things and that's what you like I love that. I learned a lot from this. I'm really happy you came in. We're kind of rounding out time here.
Okay.
We did go over. Yeah, let's go.
All right.
And then, hey, man, I'm from Mass too, so nice to have some family in the building.
Yeah, but he's a bandwagoner on the Brady front, and
that's all right.
Well,
I told him
here was my problem.
I told him to
he wanted me with a foam finger. In this
last night he's like, hey, is like I know Robby, and what's he probably like? Is
he going to come in a suit?
Yeah, and I was like, there's no chance this man shows up in a suit. He is as laid back as you and I. Wear whatever you want. We're all going to blend in. It's going to be fine. He's like, all right, cool. And I was like, but with that said, I need you wearing your Brady gear head to toe. And he's like, no, it's going to be fitted.
Yeah, but what if I came with
do
Pat's gear on instead?
He goes, I'm going to be wearing a fitted hat, some sort of button down like I always do. Cool. I'm glad that I don't have to change my attire. I was like, but you can bring in the foam finger. You can bring in,
the Pats, we wouldn't have been able to do these.
Cut it off.
He would have turned around upon arrival. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate you coming in.
I think
it was really enlightening. It's going to be great for the viewers as well.
Awesome.
Keep doing all the hard work. We're rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you.
Cool. See you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That was great.
Thank you. That was awesome.